And we are live. Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Coffee and Perspective with Jace. Today, I've got the great privilege to speak to a gentleman who once was my boss, and he is an entertainer. He's a cruise director, and hopefully by now he's a professional drone pilot. It's Mr. Stephen Cloete.
Hey, Jace, it's part of your show. Good afternoon, everyone. I love the fact that you say a gentleman. That's really cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know,
I've got to call it how it is, because you are one of the, not to start it off by blowing steam up your butt, but you're one of the more respected people that I've worked for over my career on the ship. But firstly, before we get into anything, since last we were working together, you have become a father. So congratulations.
That's right. Thank you. My next big adventure. In fact, my little baby turns 1 this week, so we're very excited.
And
so
I watched the process over the birth and when you were still on board and the whole thing, and super excited. Super exciting for both of you. It's a big journey. Yes.
Yeah, you know, everybody that you speak to that have become parents tell you it's a life-changing experience and so on. And you go, yeah. But actually, until it happens to you, you don't understand the fullness of that particular thing. Yeah, it really is. And, you know, it changes your perspective. It changes your goals, both short-term and long-term. And just the joy you have of being a parent most of the time. So rewarding.
Yeah. So before we get into
those teething, screaming moments at 2 o'clock in the morning, which make you sort of reconsider.
And the lack of sleep.
But luckily, yeah, there's not much sleep around. But you know, when things settle and there's a routine involved, there is just so much joy and love. So very, very happy. Thank you.
Good. I mean, I know obviously quite a bit about you, but for those who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, just give a brief background of your story and how you got involved in the entertainment industry as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how far back you want to go. I had an absolute fascination with the entertainment industry since I was a child. I grew up in apartheid South Africa, where it was believed for a very long time that South African citizens shouldn't have access to television because it was considered evil by the then nationalist government and was bringing too many abstract ideas to the general populace. So, you know, by the time I was 6 years old, I hadn't ever been experienced any kind of entertainment other than live entertainment. Sure. So it was going down to see shows at the town hall. It was going to go and see a little magic show at a friend's birthday party, that kind of thing. And that was my very first entertainment experience. And I was captivated, particularly by seeing magic for the very first time. You know, I had no concept then that it was trickery, an illusion. I just thought, wow, this is real, and I want to become a wizard.
Yeah.
And I was obviously very vocal in my passion to my parents, who supported me. And by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, I was actually performing magic tricks. By the time I was 10, I was doing shows for my friends and their birthday parties. By the time I was 13, I was charging to perform at the local school or the library. And by the time I was in my late teens...
This is just pure magic. This is just sleight of hand, card tricks, basic magic.
And sort of stage magic, prop magic, a little bit of mentalism, a bit of escapology. I was... getting into a whole lot of different stuff. And in my late teens, I considered myself to be sort of semi-professional. I was doing illusions like floating ladies and cutting them in half and so on. But obviously, like most people, didn't think that I could make a career out of it. So I went into university, and after varsity, I was conscripted into the army. And during that time, I had the opportunity to perform while I was in the army. And that's when I think I developed a really strong show. And by the time I actually came out of the army, I was working for a hotel chain, actually, and I was doing shows on the side, and I kept that going for quite some time. And eventually I decided that I was doing so well in entertainment that let me just do it professionally. So I gave up my career, career that I studied for, and went into magic full time. An agent saw me and said, "Hey, I think you should work on a cruise ship." And I thought, "No, I'm not really interested in a cruise ship." They said, "No, we think it'd be really good. Maybe just a couple of weeks."
Just for context, sorry, where was this, more or less, in what year?
This was in South Africa. It was round about the late 1990s. My first cruise ship gig was in 97.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like 23 years ago. I just absolutely loved it. I stayed within the pure entertainment context on a cruise ship as a performing artist, much like yourself when we worked together. Did that for 4 years. And then was eventually offered the opportunity to become cruise director for the company I was working for, which basically means you look after the entire entertainment sector on board the ship.
Yeah.
And it's a career that's taken me all over the world.
The cruise director thing has taken up quite a large slot of your professional career. But just to back up a little bit in the magic, so on board you were purely performing theatre shows, magic shows.
That's right. I had my own solo show, one-man show.
Yep.
I used to perform a slot in a variety style show, like a little teaser slot, and then I had my own show, which took up one evening in multiple sittings.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I did for nearly 4 years.
And for some, if you don't have anything, that's okay. But do you have anything behind you, or any cards, or any particular trick or illusion or something that you have that can be displayed on camera?
I will see if I can come up with something by the time we end off.
By the time
what I'll actually do, Jace, is I'll send through a little interactive magic trick that you can put on your video, and your viewers can actually participate. And I'll send that through a little bit later.
You can check through, no worries. So you went through the magic, and before the cruise director thing, I am quite aware, and those who have had the fortune of being on one of your cruises as a cruise director, they know that you give a talk, or you give many talks, but one of them are about scams, which is completely out of the context of, the traditional entertainment. I take it that you have a found interest in the scam industry, the hustle industry, and the way people can get scammed out nowadays. Do you mind? I know that you wrote a book about it as well?
Yeah, I actually wrote a few books about it. Being involved with magic for so long, and obviously there is no such thing as real magic. It's all tricks, it's all illusions, it's all misdirection, that kind of thing. What I was noticing is I was occasionally encountering people that were using the same techniques that I use as a magician, as an entertainer.
Entertainment. Mm-hmm.
But they were not using it for entertainment purposes. They were using it for something a little bit more nefarious, and they were actually using those same skills to scam people, whether it's by cloning their credit card or running a Facebook scam. And I was very interested to understand the psychology of why people fall for these scams. How can you receive an email and you believe it's true, or read an article on Facebook and you get emotionally charged enough to be able to share it or pass it on, and how these scams actually work. You're always seeing on Facebook, please don't accept a second friend request from me because my account's been hacked, or my account's been compromised, or that kind of thing. So I was interested to know how people allowed things to get to that state.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book on it, and it was very successful. So I wrote a follow-up book, which was also very successful. That sort of took my career in a different path.
Are these books online? So if anyone's watching, if they want to try get hold of them, or
my most recent book, and it's actually quite strange to use the word recent, is probably a few years ago now. It was available countrywide in South Africa, unfortunately not internationally. But in South Africa, certainly, all of the classic bookstores like CNA, Exclusive Books, and so on, you were able to purchase copies of these books. It actually became a bestseller for a short period of time. And I would speak about things like fake news before fake news became a thing.
And before it got a title.
But even still, it's just unbelievable to see how vulnerable people allow themselves to become. And how active these scam artists are, especially on social media now, because it's a nice, easy target. And currently with the COVID-19 pandemic, there is so much misinformation on the internet that there are people that are going online creating these fake news articles and fake videos, sharing them. And when you share something on Facebook or social media, you leave a tag. And because you leave a tag that you've actually shared it, or you liked it, or commented on it, the criminal essentially that created this fake information has access to your Facebook profile and your friends list. And that's how they're getting in, and that's how they're cloning and creating these so-called hacked accounts, even though they're not actually hacked. It's just
it's quite worrying, because there are, and I know that you do it. You've been doing it quite often in the past year or so, if not more. That you basically say to everyone that you will know as your Facebook friend, you go, if you're going to copy or paste or share something that you have no background information on, you will unfriend them / block them / just remove them from your account. Because
particularly now when most of us are at home in lockdown and we sort of turn to social media a lot as our way to connect with people we actually know. It's very frustrating to see the misinformation that's out there,
and it spreads like a wildfire.
And most people don't fact check.
No,
they just share because they think it resonates with them. But that potentially is quite a dangerous thing, because if you're sharing false information, somebody must have created that false information, and then there's two reasons why they would do that. Number one, because they just want to be mischievous. And clever, and they just want to see how many times their information can be shared. But the more dangerous one is when it's created by someone with ulterior motives, and they create these very believable fake documents that often are quite emotive. Things that involve politics or religion. For every share, we'll donate $1 to animal anti-cruelty, that kind of thing. So you share it because you think, wow, we want to help the animals. But because you shared it, as I said, you leave a digital tag.
No money's going
criminal they can act. Then they can clone your photographs. They look at your friends list, and then they send your friends another friend request. And most people don't check.
No.
Am I a friend of that person? I'm sure I'm already a friend of that person. Oh, I'll just click yes. And before you know it, you have a cloned account. And then that misinformation can spread even further. And then these criminals will start contacting your friends by private message, saying, hey, I'm a little bit short this month. I need a couple of thousand rand. Can you help me? And your friends go, yeah, sure, of course.
Is there any one that's currently circulating, just to finish off with that set, about, is there anything that you're aware of at the moment that you're aware that a lot of people could be getting caught on, that stands out to you, that you've come across quite a few times?
Jace, I couldn't give you one example. There are literally thousands doing the rounds. I mean, recently, just in the last couple of days, there have been these posts going around that, did you know that tonight at 20 minutes past 8 and 20 seconds, it'll be 20, referring to time, 2020. And this is the only time this will happen in our entire lifetime. And you're going, no, it happens every single day. Tomorrow, there'll also be a 2020. Or since Cyril Ramaphosa made his announcement about the 500 billion rand injection into our economy, people are saying, well, there's 52 million people in South Africa, so why not just give everybody R1 million? And I'm going like, oh my God, where did you do maths? Or these people saying, oh, but regular flu kills more people than COVID-19. And I'm going like, no, it doesn't. COVID-19 is the most dangerous, the most contagious virus that we've had in recent times. So, people share these kind of things, and not only is it dangerous because it's misinformation, but you have to worry about who created these things and why.
Yeah.
Is it just for mischievous purposes? Most of the time, honestly, as far as this fake news is concerned, it's just mischief. But when you start having these posts saying, if you share and like this to commemorate the opening of our new Maldives resort, and one lucky person, if you like, share, or comment, will win a luxury holiday for two, those are the posts that are the most dangerous, because you share it because you think, oh, I could win something. But in actual fact, it's often created by criminals whose intent is to clone your account and clone the accounts of your friends.
Yeah, I think it's
and when I wrote my book,
I think it's fair to say that everyone should just do a little bit of fact checking before clicking that quick share button. That's
but Jace, it's all well and good saying what we should do. We should stay at home, but people don't. We should fact check, but people don't. So we can say we should, but we don't. When I did my research for my book, I encountered so many people that lost sizable amounts of money through Facebook scams. And you think, it's just Facebook. How can you lose money? Things like you click on something which we call clickbait on Facebook, which directs you to another page. And they say, well, if you'd like to read this article, you'd like to watch this video, you have to open up a free account. It's free. All we need is your email address and a password. And most people use the same password for everything.
For all accounts, yeah.
Right. So now what you're doing is you've given the criminal your password and your email address, and now they can get into your Gmail account, they can get into your Facebook account, and when you communicate with your clients and said, hey, I need you to pay me, here's my bank account details, they intercept that email, change the bank account details, and boom. So all of these things, and unfortunately most people just don't think about it. And despite the fact that we're chatting and how many people are ever going to watch this, or how many people have read my book, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Actually, on one of my cruises, I met a guy who attended one of my lectures, and he bought my book, which he really enjoyed. And he said to me, I have to tell you, I really enjoyed it, but I didn't listen to your advice. And I got taken for a ride. His credit card got cloned. Because one of the things that I always tell people, one of the things that I always tell people about their credit cards, and this is not a credit card, so I can show this to you. It's my movie card. On the back, there's what we call the CVV number. It's a special number that you have to use when you do any online purchases. My best advice to anybody is to take a sticker and place it over that CVV number. So you can peel it back if you need to reference it, but you can leave it closed so that people can't generally glance at it. You have no idea how that will protect your credit card. If you do that and somebody takes your credit card to process it, whether it's at the garage or the local supermarket, if they don't have a CVV number, your credit card cannot be cloned. So,
quick tip.
Little tips like, that's your hot
then,
tip for the day.
Then with your lectures and your talks, for those of you who are not aware or have not had the fortune of being on either MSC Cruise or more recently a Disney cruise with him as cruise director, you've spent a lot of your time in your professional career, let's say, in the cruise industry, from MSC and now into Disney Cruises as a cruise director. My question to you is, what drew you to, we know how you got into the cruise industry, but what drew you to staying in the cruise industry for so many years as a cruise director?
Sure. I started in the industry as a performer, and then obviously as cruise director managing other performers. I was very fortunate in the sense that I was able to continue to perform. You and I performed together many times. You need to sort of start settling down into other directions.
Sorry, Stephen, your internet cut for a little bit there. You broke away for a bit. The last I heard was that you were lucky enough to still perform on the ship. Yeah,
so I had the opportunity to perform. You and I performed together many times. But eventually, as you start getting older, you start maturing, you look for other opportunities where you don't necessarily have to perform. And I made the decision to migrate to Disney, which of course is one of the top entertainment companies in the world. And that was very, very highlight for me when I was given the opportunity to work with them. and be involved in some of the amazing production shows they do on board, like Frozen and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and some incredible production shows, and help present these to the guests. It was a different avenue, so I don't necessarily get to perform anymore, but I certainly involved more in the management style, and it keeps me very much on my toes, because every single day, no matter how you plan, things change. And I think I love that challenge of being able to handle things on a daily basis, and I think that's what's kept me in industry so long. There's a very cliched saying, but one I think is very apt: if you love what you do and you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I think that's very true in my chosen career. Being able to bring so much joy to literally hundreds of thousands of people of all ages.
Yeah, because I mean, the cruises you're dealing with 4,000, depends on how many passengers the ship can hold, but you're dealing with thousands of guests on a weekly basis, nearly, depending on the cruise itineraries.
Many different ships, ranging from 600 guests right up to 5,000 guests, and sometimes with multiple cruises a week, you might be entertaining 10,000 guests potentially. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of responsibility. But it's a very, very rewarding position to be able to bring joy to people.
And now that you're on Disney, I need to ask, I'm a huge Disney fan myself, is there any, not per se show that's in the theater, but is there any particular Disney movie or Disney song that is your favorite? That if that was in the theater, you would go, I'm there. This is my favorite show. This is my favorite song.
I think I have a very personal reason for wanting to single out Mary Poppins. The reason being, it was the very first Disney movie I ever saw. Actually, not only that, it was the very first movie I'd ever seen. I already said to you that when I grew up, it was in a zero television environment, but there were still movies. And I think when I was 6 or 7, my mom took me to go and see Mary Poppins. And again, because it was so magical and I was so obsessed with magic, I just think it was had such a great meaning for me. And when Mary Poppins Returns came out a couple of years later, 40 years later, in fact, I had the opportunity to take my mother, who was now well into her 80s, to go and see that show. So it was, pardon the cliched expression, it was the circle of life. The circle of life. That was very special. I think that's one of my all-time favorites, movies, so to speak. And I think one of my favorite characters is Winnie the Pooh. Again, just brings back so many wonderful childhood memories of my mum, my dad, my aunts, my uncles reading me these stories. And I was just getting so captivated in this amazing world. So yeah, I've always had an affinity to Disney since I was a small child.
As like myself and a lot of other people, I'm still yet to come on a cruise, so I'll let you know when we decide to make our way to the States and jump on a cruise.
Well, when the cruise industry gets back up and going, you'll be more than welcome to be our guest.
Be our guest. Then, even though it's all magical and living in and working on board a cruise ship, there's a lot of memes that happen, especially amongst ex-crew members, where they go, the way their friends see them if they work on the ship, the way their family sees them if they're working on the ship, and it's all these glamorous photos. And then there's the photo of them actually working on the ship, spending times in their cabins, being away from home, all the cons, all the not so glitz and glamoury stuff of the cruise industry. You as a cruise director, like you said, you need to manage the whole entertainment staff, as well as adapt to all the changes that happen on the cruise. And because I've worked quite closely with you for quite a couple of months in the past, I'm very well aware of what you deal with and what you had to deal with on a daily basis, which is not the glitz and glamoury part of the job. But I want to ask, in what time, it can be anywhere from your time being cruise director on MSC, or even more recently on Disney, or times where something wasn't going as you would have hoped, because that happens a lot. Or maybe one of your performances, even maybe not even as a cruise director, maybe one of your own personal talks or performances weren't going so well. You clearly weren't getting into the swing of things. Maybe, you had all these expectations and you just couldn't seem to either hit what the guests were wanting, or it was taking some time to figure out how to please the guests from an entertainment point of view. So my question is, through these times, and you can mention one even if you feel like, how did you have to go back to your cabin or the office and put your mind in a place that you brush it off, you take it, brush it off, and just keep moving onwards and upwards?
That is a very long and convoluted question. But yeah, I hear you exactly. Every single morning you start out with a plan. And it is very rare that plan goes completely 100% perfectly. There's always little speed bumps. This problem that anybody on a cruise ship has is essentially the weather. People expect the postcard. People expect the brochure. They want calm seas, sunny skies, no wind, no rain. And that would be amazing if it was up to us. But unfortunately, we don't control the weather. So occasionally it rains, and occasionally there's strong wind or there's strong seas. And that's when our biggest contingencies have to come in. If we have a beautiful party, rain, we can't have that party on deck. We've got to move it inside or postpone it. Or if it's blustering with wind and it's a howling gale outside, we can't maybe let guests go onto the beach. But unfortunately...
that was their one day.
Oh yeah, that was their one day, and that was the whole reason that they booked it. Obviously we try and compensate where we can, and we come up with a plan B. But sometimes it's further reaching than that, Jason. And from someone that works in the theatre, you would know this too. Occasionally, if there's really rough seas outside because of a howling wind, and the ship's moving around a little bit, it might not necessarily be safe to perform certain acts on the stage. Maybe a balancing act, or a high energy dance number with lots of high kicks and so on. It could potentially be quite dangerous for people to work in the environment where the stage is constantly moving. So you have to constantly come up with plan B, and sometimes plan C and D and E if necessary, to compensate for it. But that's one of the reasons why I love the job so much, because there's so much quick thinking on the fly, and working with such amazing people that always step up to the plate. But after that day is done and dusted, and the day is always over at some stage or other, sometimes you just need to go up into the very top deck where there's very few lights, and you just look up, and you just look at that incredible great sky, and if there's no cloud, you just see the stars like you cannot begin to see on land. And you just breathe in that nice fresh air, and that just puts everything into perspective. And I think that's how very often, refreshed my own mind and cleared my mind ready for whatever interesting things were going to happen the next day.
For those who have been on board and maybe haven't experienced this, there, like Stephen was saying, there's the time where you might have that one port day in Hawaii, or in the South African context, you might have that stop off in Cape Town, but because of the weather or the winds, and it's not safe for the crews to come in, the ship just doesn't go in. And without putting things into context, the first thing the guests will do is they go, the cruise director, the captain, why didn't we stop? You've spoiled our cruise. And I've seen it firsthand. So I know that there's a ton of pressure, but I guess that's why you're in the position that you're in. It's because you deal with it. You deal with it very calmly and very humbly when guests are coming and screaming at you and going crazy.
It's like an insurance policy. You don't need it till you need it, right?
Yeah. You just go through with it. Then on that context, I also remember one of the times that we were chatting, or you had one of the talks, where there's a few things and there's a few questions that guests, because you're around the guests constantly, they have the free will to come up to you, speak to you, tell you things, make statements. So I know that there was quite a list at one stage of, I don't know how to say it, but ridiculous things, or the most uneducative statements or questions that guests have asked you. Out of the top of your head, do you have any that you can say?
Yeah, you know, they're pretty standard across the cruise industry, and every sort of cruise director you chat with will have their own favorites.
Yeah.
But you do get some very unusual questions from time to time. You know, for example, guests will ask you things like, what time is the midnight buffet? You know, without thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're like, hello. Or, you know, what time, you know, they'll say, can we see dolphins when you're on the cruise? Yes, you can often see dolphins. Awesome. What time? We don't book them, you know. Yeah. Or do the crew live on board?
Do the crew live on board? I remember that one.
Do the elevators go to the front of the ship? You know, all of these really weird questions that haven't really been thought through.
Yeah.
And I guess what makes them quite funny is the fact that they're very often not one-offs. They ask almost every single cruise.
Yeah, do the elevators go to the front of the ship? Incredible.
Anyway, you asked me to do a magic for you. So while we were chatting, I'm in my study at the moment, so I opened up my little stationery drawer here, and I got myself an elastic band, which I snapped. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And I've tied a knot in the one end so that if you hold it, it doesn't slip off. Mm-hmm. And I've tied a knot in the other end so that you hold it, it doesn't slip off. So what I'm going to... One second. I've got a pen. Oh, just dropped them on the floor.
No worries. Your internet just keeps breaking away every so often, but I'll let you know if it goes away.
Okay. So I've got this little
rubber band,
elastic band, and I've got this pen which I'm just quickly going to clip onto there by holding the knot. There we go. So you can see now that the pen is actually on the elastic band, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see that now. Just watch very carefully, because that pen is going to start to move, and you'll notice that my fingers are not moving. I'm not stretching the band at all. The pen is definitely starting to climb, like a cable car, really. You know, the one in Cape Town.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit smaller,
mm-hmm.
but it's going up. And again, my fingers are not moving. I'm not stretching the elastic band. It's just going up and up and up and up. And that's a little bit of magic for you today.
Illusion.
It's an illusion.
Yay. Good job. So we've covered your magic, we've covered your scams, which were two parts that me personally, I asked it selfishly because I'm quite interested in your magic and your interest in the scams. And then within the cruise industry, because potentially there's going to be quite a few entertainers that will watch this, or people within the entertainment industry that will see this, and possibly some that are thinking of either working on a cruise ship as anything, not necessarily entertainment, or those that might want to be crew staff within the production, animators, etc. Is there anything or things that you can share that you feel someone should know before working on the ship, which maybe isn't communicated very well to them beforehand? Because everyone's got different opinions and experiences. So I can tell somebody, you know, my experiences, but what coming from your mouth that's done it for numerous years, is there anything that you feel a potential crew member should know, which they might not know before working on a ship?
First of all, and very importantly on the subject of scams, is there's a lot of fake agencies out there that will take your CV, charge you a admin fee, and then will sometimes even tell you that you've got the job, and that you have to pay for your first flight or your visa or something along those lines. You know, as soon as you have to start paying for stuff, very often there's a scam involved. Most cruise lines don't charge for recruitment. So you need to bear that in mind. Secondly, either contact the cruise line directly, especially if you're going in, for example, as a utility staff member, a housekeeper, a bar staff, that kind of thing. But most cruise lines will work through one or two agencies. It's best to go through those agencies, check them out, vet them out, make sure that everything's above board, get some reviews, get referrals, that kind of thing, and let them work for you, because they will get paid a placement fee from the cruise line. So they will work hard to get you on board the ship, but that shouldn't cost you anything. If you're an entertainer, a lot of people say, hey, you know, I can play the guitar really well. Can I come and work on the cruise ship? It doesn't really work that way. You know, you actually have to be really good and fairly established as an entertainer, whether you're a musician, a singer, a dancer, a talented artist, whether it's ventriloquism or magic or whatever the case might be. But once again, you need to get yourself an agent and let the agent represent you. Let them get the best deal for you, whether it's a cabin, whether it's your salary, whether it's your perks and benefits. They will work hard to get you the best deal, because cruise lines are so big. They have so many ships. They're employing so many people. They don't have the time and the energy to devote to recruiting people individually, one by one by one. That's why they use the agency. So once again, working through an agency is a way better opportunity than just trying to phone and say, hey, who do I send my CV to? You know, and above all, please, 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 because it's the biggest turnoff in the recruitment industry. Don't ever contact somebody in the cruise ship or the entertainment industry in general and say, hey, my daughter wants a job. My son wants a job.
Get your son and your daughter to do that.
Don't recruit on behalf of someone, or don't try and get someone a job on their behalf. They must do it themselves, because if they don't, then they're not showing a genuine interest in actually taking that position.
And then being on board, things that they might not know once they're even on board. So for example, it's a given, yes, you're staying in a smaller cabin, you're not living in a house, you cannot just walk to the shop, things like that. You cannot just jump into your car. Is there any other particular small pointers that you feel are quite important for someone to know once they do go on? Because it's part of our job as well to inform people of what to expect,
Sure.
so that they're aware.
All the big cruise recruitment agencies will have those FAQs online. Very often they have videos as well. But yes, you know, it's not like the passenger experience where you sit around the pool and drink pina coladas all day. You do have to work. But there are rules and regulations. There are labor unions involved. It's not slave labor. Normally, depending on your rank, on board the ship, whether you're a low-level employee or whether you're an officer, you might get a single cabin, you might get a sharing cabin with another person. Normally you have your own facility, so your own bathroom and toilet. Some ships have bunk beds, some ships have both beds, you know, down on one level, TV, fridge, that kind of thing. So you do have the small luxuries in life, and most cruise lines will offer their crew activities and crew entertainment. There's a crew gym, a bar, a disco, a swimming pool just for the crew. And of course you do have the opportunity to go off when you're in port. But all of those questions and answers can be taken care of by the agent that looks after you.
Yeah, good. On all the past conversations I've had, I haven't touched on what's happening currently in the situation with the coronavirus, COVID-19. But I feel that it's because it impacts me directly, it impacts you directly with the whole shutdown. I mean, this is, of course, just a hypothesis, and I'm just going to throw it out there. But do you have any rough guess or any feeling? You know where I'm going with this. Do you have any feeling of when you will be back? That, luckily for all of you watching, I probably wouldn't get to sit and have a chat like this with Stephen in probably any other circumstances. because he's a busy man. He's either flying or he's on board, or when he is at home, he's spending time with his family. He doesn't want to be sitting on video calls with anyone else. So yeah, do you have a rough guess, or even just a statement that you want to say that, what will happen with the cruising industry?
Can obviously give you my opinion, which is not based on any
no factual. I just want to know your personal opinion.
But Jace, Dean, if we'd had this conversation 5 months ago, middle of December, and I said to him, Jason, 5 months from today, the entire world's going to shut down. A roll of toilet paper will be more expensive than a barrel of oil. Nobody will be able to fly anywhere. There'll be no cruising. There'll be no hotels. You cannot visit your elderly parents in an old age home. And that'll happen 5 months from today. You would have told me I was completely barking mad. It is something completely alien to what we are used to. And I think that's probably what we're going to expect in the future. Optimistically, I know people really want this problem to be resolved as soon as possible. I personally believe that until there is a vaccine or a cure, I think we're going to remain in very restricted lifestyles. I think the entertainment industry and the tourism industry are going to be very hard hit for a very long time to come. When flights do open up, it's going to be very intermittent and sparse. I think it's the same with hotels. I think it's the same with resorts. I think it's going to be the same with cruise ships. And much like 9/11 changed the face of airport security forever, I think COVID-19 pandemic is going to change the way we view health and the safety of guests in hotels, audience members at shows, and passengers on cruise ships. I think it's going to change in the foreseeable future for a very long time to come. My best case scenario, optimistically, a lot of people want to get the industry up and running within the next couple of months. I hope beyond all hope that is going to be the case. I really do. But I honestly could not give you a best guess, because this pandemic doesn't change week by week. It doesn't change day by day. The situation literally changes hour by hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm holding thumbs that
all that we can do
over
is
soon.
Just hope for the.
And that's all we can do. It's just hope.
Yeah.
Or if you're so inclined to pray.
Yeah, good. To wrap off, out of my personal interest as well, do you have any, within the cruising industry, you are quite highly ranked. So you're achieving, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of more challenges coming your way when you work with your new company on Disney. But other than the entertainment, or let's say the cruising industry, not the entertainment, the cruising industry, do you have any future aspirations, goals? You've always wanted to have, you wanting to write another book, for example, you wanting to create a new illusion show that you're wanting to put on somewhere, anything. It's an open book.
I'm one of those very fortunate individuals that managed to tick off most of my bucket list. There are certainly a few places in the world I would still like to visit. I've never visited the Antarctic, but it's some place I would still like to go. I'm not sure whether I'm going to write another book anytime soon. I really enjoyed it, but it was very time consuming. And although it gave me a lot of personal reward, there's not a lot of future in book writing unless you are writing a series of Harry Potter books, possibly.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel that I've very much reached a wonderful place in my career right now. And I'm quite content to be there for the foreseeable future. 5 years, 10 years down the line, who knows? I mean, as I said, we could have had this conversation 5 months ago about what's happening today, and we would have both called each other liars. So who knows what's going to happen 5 months from now, 5 years from now? I think one of the things that this particular pandemic has taught me personally is not to look a year down the line. Right now I look at today, staying safe, loving my family, loving being with my family, and what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's my biggest concern right now. Yeah. Down the line, who knows? I think we just have to play the waiting game a little bit longer.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
Oh,
also,
great.
I just have to finish off by saying again, just how I started. For those of you who are fortunate enough to go on a cruise, in particular Disney Cruises, where Stephen is now currently a cruise director, when the industry gets back up and running, not only is he a great cruise director, and you can even block your camera if you don't want to hear me say this, not only is he a great cruise director, but he is, knowing that I've worked underneath him, he is an incredible leader and a manager as well. So for sure, if you know that you're on one of his cruises, not only is he presenting something legitimately, you know that all the people in the entertainment industry that are in the entertainment staff that are working underneath him are being led in a very, very good direction by him. So I applaud you. Keep.
Well, I appreciate that, Jace. Thank you so much indeed. And lots of love to your lovely wife. And thanks for having me on your show. Awesome.
I will do. Thanks. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching Coffee and Perspective 005 with the incredible Mr. Stephen Cloete. Until next time, cheers.